Okay guys, there's a lot of things I always see wrong with the deadlift, so we're gonna go over all the key points that I can think of right now. First thing we're gonna do is your stance. Before even lifting, we gotta get in the right position. What we're gonna do is get yourself in the proper stance, shoulder width apart. Now, always remember, there's a lot of variations to the deadlift. There's wider stance, which is a sumo deadlift. Some people like to deadlift with a really narrow stance, so there's not really a right and wrong to your stance. We're just gonna do traditional to begin with. This is the perfect stance. As you can see, his back is straight, the butt is down, and his head is in a neutral position, or some people can even lift it up, but you don't want to have your head down. One thing I see that's always really wrong with this, lift your butt up a little bit. Sometimes I see this as your deadlift stance. This is horrible. You're automatically in the wrong position, and this is going to cause a lot of injury. It might not happen the first time, might not happen the 10th time, but down the road, this area of your body is going to take a beating if you're deadlifting like this week after week. When you lift, you want to try and lift as close to your shins as possible. That's one of the techniques to help you get more strength. You don't want to have the bar far away from your body. As you can see, the bar is very close to his shins, and as he pulls, it's going to remain close to his body as he pulls up. The other thing is, you want to remember, the deadlift is almost more of a leg exercise than a back exercise. When he pulls, the first half of this movement is going to be a lower body movement. The key is to drive your feet through the floor so you get more power that way. You're not lifting with your back. If you think lift with your legs, then you'll be doing the right thing. Let's go up with the bar. Okay. Now that was actually perfect the way he lifted it. So let's go back down. Now, as you saw, everything came up together. The legs came up and the back came up, everything stayed in the same line. Now, the main thing I see wrong with the deadlift, almost every week I see it in the gym. What you're gonna see is he's gonna lift his butt first and then lift the bar. So he started off in the right position, but the natural thought process is if I lift my butt, I can get more strength out of my back, but that's because you're thinking to lift with your back. If you think to lift with your legs first, then you'll start in the right position. So let's do it one more time. So as you see again, when he lifts, the quads are gonna do most of the work here, and then his back is gonna come into play after the bar is already a foot off the ground. So go ahead. All in one motion. That's generally the deadlift. Now, the variation of it is the sumo deadlift. And obviously the reason they call this a sumo deadlift is because sumo wrestlers start in that very wide stance, right? So we're gonna copy that. And it's gonna be the same thing, but you're gonna see his hands are gonna be inside of his legs instead of outside on the traditional deadlift. So go ahead and get down to position. This movement is even more of a leg movement than the traditional deadlift, because as he lifts, you're gonna see his back is gonna stay right here. And he's just gonna go straight up with his legs. Now go ahead and lift. So the back movement itself is actually shorter than on a traditional deadlift. It's actually more leg to get the weight up off the ground. That's generally the deadlift and the sumo deadlift. Biggest keys are make sure your feet are planted, make sure you're pushing off the heel, make sure you're driving through the legs, make sure the back is straight and it doesn't lift before the legs do. It's gotta all go in one motion. That's the deadlift.